Ted. We're Ted and Qatherine. So yeah, we're big Dragon Quest fans. We've been actually not fans for a very long time, but we're very big fans. Question to anybody who's watching: who has played Dragon Quest since it's been called Dragon Warrior? Oh, cool! Yay! Lots of fans. Awesome.
Shows how old we are.
How many people have played a Dragon Quest game? I don't care if you finished it, but like, pretty good. Okay.
How many people have never touched a Dragon Quest or Dragon? Okay, good. Okay, so this panel is designed specifically for you people who have never touched a Dragon Quest game, a Dragon Warrior game. We'll be getting to the difference in just soon enough. But
So this panel really, we want it to be inviting for new people, but all experience levels are welcome. We're going to have some fun trivia at the end. This is a spoiler-free zone. We're not going to talk about spoilers for the sake of those who haven't played the games yet. And for the sake of this panel, we're going to focus on the main series games. There's a lot of spin-offs. We can talk about them. We can talk about them at the end when we do some open Q&A, but we're just going to limit the scope. And please keep it positive. Don't be a troll. Don't bash other series or bash Dragon Quest compared to other series.
yeah, don't be that guy.
Don't be the troll.
You is wanting to eat my dinner. Okay, so you might be wondering what the difference between Dragon Quest and Dragon Warrior is. The two names can basically just be used interchangeably. They're really... Oh, okay, it's not okay, the mouse is not working, okay. There really is no difference. Basically, what happened was, outside of Japan, during the mid-'80s to early 2000s, they could not use the name Dragon Quest because there was a copyright conflict with, I believe it was a Dungeons & Dragons campaign, which also had the name Dragon Quest. So until that copyright ran out in 2004 or 5, the first Dragon Quest game to use the name Dragon Quest worldwide was Dragon Quest 8. But if we say Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior, they mean the same thing. They're the same games, pretty much. So yeah.
So for those of you who haven't played Dragon Quest games, or maybe just played the first Dragon Warrior game on the NES, you might be wondering, okay, what's this series like? So they're turn-based RPGs, with the exception of one game that we'll talk about much later. They're straightforward. There's not a lot of complicated things like limit breaks or overdrives or anything like that for the most part, but they also tend to be pretty challenging.
Who here has played Earthbound? Mother 3, Luthia. Basically, Dragon Quest is the basis for the combat systems for all of those kinds of games, pretty much. So if you're familiar with those, you'll be familiar with Dragon Quest.
So the protagonist of Dragon Quest is almost always entirely silent throughout the game. So you're supposed to be able to project yourself onto the player. And they are almost always either a chosen one or a prince, and sometimes both.
Yeah.
And generally the games have a plot that ends up following an overall arc of the hero and or his party must defeat an evil demon lord and save the world. They're often pretty lighthearted games with a lot of humor. Who got the puff puff in DQ8? Anyone? Yeah. So they're humorous, but at the same time, when they go for really tragic moments, they hit hard. And there's always slimes. Slimes have been in every Dragon Quest game.
One of the few monsters to be in every single Dragon Quest games, actually. They're basically the face of the series. So anyway, let's talk about who makes the Dragon Quest games. Somewhat like the Final Fantasy series, there's actually kind of like a stable of people who are generally involved with it. Actually, somewhat more consistent than Final Fantasy in that sense. The games are almost always written by, the main series I should specify, is almost always written by Yuji Horii. He's been writing the games, he's been director for a couple of them since the very beginning. He's really kind of been the main face of the series in terms of directing and whatnot. Akira Toriyama, who here has heard of a little anime called Dragon Ball?
Nobody? I don't know. Never heard of it.
Akira Toriyama has done the monster designs and the character designs for almost every game and almost every spin-off. So if you're familiar with not just Dragon Ball, but games like Chrono Trigger or Blue Dragon, a lot of that, you'll like what you see in Dragon Quest. The monster designs and the character designs are very memorable and striking. And music composition, much like how Nobuo Uematsu is famous for composing a large majority of the Final Fantasy series, Koji Sugiyama is a similar composer for Dragon Quest. He's composed every mainline series of game, a good number of the spin-offs, and he has, I think, personally conducted a large number of Dragon Quest orchestral symphonies, which are almost always just in Japan, but you know, yeah. So anyway, let's start things off with our quick rundown of the series, starting with the original game, Dragon Quest I. This was originally released on the Japanese Famicom in 1986. But we did not get that game until 1989. Now, who here got the game for free back in the day?
Nintendo Power.
Nintendo Power? Awesome, yes. This game, unfortunately, the game was a massive hit in Japan. That's going to be a common theme, if you notice. And they expected it to be just as big in the United States, but it came out 3 years later, and a lot of the things Dragon Quest I did weren't really as groundbreaking in 1989 as they were in 86, so they had so many extra copies that Nintendo Power had to give them away for free with subscriptions. So anyway, but what is the game about? Well, being essentially the first console JRPG, it's a relatively simple plot. You're a descendant of the hero Erdrick, or if you're Japanese, his name is either Loto or Roto, depending on the translation. And you have to save a kidnapped princess and defeat the evil Dragon Lord. So it introduces the very basics of the DQ battle system. It is you versus one monster at any given time. You can attack, you can do a small number of spells, including the very descriptive heal and hurt spells. It's not like Fireball, it's literally called hurt. Now the version that we got is actually updated from the version that the Japanese got. If you look up screenshots comparing the two, in Japan, the characters did not turn left when they changed left. They kind of like moved or slide around, slid around. We had a save system. Yeah, it's, and also, this is one of the very first games to get a true localization, where it was written in ye olde medieval English, where it would be like, a slime draws near, command thine attack did 12 hit points.
Thou art dead.
Thou art dead, yes. And another fun fact, the programming for the English translation was actually overseen by Satoru Iwata, the late president of Nintendo. So that was actually a really cool piece of trivia. But anyway, the game was shortly followed by a sequel.
Yeah, so the sequel is Dragon Quest II, Luminaries of the Legendary Line. And in this game, the Prince of Middenhall, the guy in blue in the picture, and his cousins, the Prince of Cannock and the Princess of Moonbrook, who are all descended from the DQ1 hero, must stop the evil wizard Hargon. So it introduced a lot of things that became staples of the series. First of all, as Ted mentioned, in the first game, there's only one character, one monster. This game introduced the idea of having a party with 3 characters, and you can fight multiple monsters in a single battle. And in addition, the characters themselves sort of establish the foundation for the sort of class tropes that Dragon Quest has, where the Prince of Middenhall in blue, he does not know any spells. All he can do is hit things. The Prince of Cannock knows a few healing spells and has some decent attacks, and the Princess of Moonbrook is basically just a mage. It's also the first game with a sailing ship, something that became a staple in later games. Erdrick just walked, the GQ1 hero just walked around. This is basically considered the hardest Dragon Quest game in the main series. The developers have admitted that they ran out of time to finish balancing the game's difficulty. So the end of the game is brutally hard.
Has anyone here beaten Dragon Quest? Oh wow.
Oh my gosh.
Ooh, wow. Okay, NES or the remakes?
NES.
Oh, okay, my hat goes off to you, good sir. Because it is...
What was the dungeon at the end?
The Cave to Rome.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah, enemies that can one-hit you, enemies that know instant death, no real good save points. And it was made easier for the NES version as opposed to the Famicom version, too. So.
And the fun fact is that Cannock, the little guy in green with the goofy hair, is the only character who can revive fallen party members.
And guess who likes to die the most?
If you look up DQ2 fan art, Cannock often is shown in a coffin.
Yeah. Let's. So Dragon Quest is. It's kind of weird. It's normally somewhat simultaneously forgiving and unforgiving with its death system. This goes kind of in general. If you die in almost every Dragon Quest game, you lose half of your gold, which is a lot, but you keep any experience and items you got. Here's the thing, reviving characters is not very common. Like, you don't get Phoenix down, so you get a Leaf of the World Tree, and you can usually only hold one on you at any given time. So yeah, can combine that with Dragon Quest II's gigantic difficulty curve. It's pretty nuts. But anyway, following Dragon Quest II is Dragon Quest III, which is considered to be one of the most, it's like the face of the series, one of the most popular games in the Dragon Quest series, and also considered to be one of the best games of all time, especially in Dragon Quest, not Dragon Quest, in Japanese polls and things like that. So anyway, what is the story this time? Basically, you are the child of the hero Ortega, and on your 16th birthday, you're told that you should go out and find your dad because he went lost trying to fight the archdemon Baramos. And so it's up to you to go and recruit companions and try to stop him, basically. So the interesting thing about this game is that you basically, it's a slight departure from Dragon Quest II, where you recruited the Prince of Canok and then the Prince of the Moonbrook at specific times in that game. But in this game, in the first town, you're able to choose which classes you have with you at any given time. So you can have a team of the hero, a warrior, a mage, and a priest, or you could do something silly like the hero and 4 goof-offs. Pretty much. It's a fully customizable party, and later in the game you can also change your class as well by undergoing a small side quest as well. So this game is a prequel to Dragon Quest I and Dragon Quest II, so especially in the late game there's a lot of callbacks to those. The first 3 games form a trilogy that's considered to be called the Loto Trilogy or the Erdrick Trilogy. And another interesting fun fact is that the world map is based off of our real world. So the hero starts in Australia. Then you're teleported to where Italy would be, to the land of Romilly, and then there's a not Egypt. And one of my favorite things about the game is that there's a city where New York would be, and you have to create a merchant to take him there. And eventually, the characters that are living there will create a revolution and throw your character in jail, mimicking the American Revolution. So it's a lot. Yeah, that's the kind of game Dragon Quest is, and it's just really really charming. And as we said before, it is the most popular game in the series in Japan. If you're going to talk about a Dragon Quest game, this is, I guess to specify it, in a lot of top 100 games list of all times, this will be up there with Super Mario Bros. 3, Ocarina of Time, games like that. So it's highly looked upon.
So the final Dragon Quest game to release for the Famicom or SNES was Dragon Quest IV. And this game has a very interesting structure. So the plot of the game is that the hero, who's shown in the box art in the upper left, as well as in the can also be either male or female, just like in Dragon Quest III. The hero must unite with chosen companions to defeat the master of monsterkind, Sorrow. The structure of the game is very interesting. It's divided into 5 chapters, with later remakes adding a 6th chapter. And chapters 1 through 4 actually follow different party members. So you get to play as the varied people behind the heroes on their own adventures, which somewhat intersect with what the hero will have to do. And finally, in chapter 5, you play as the hero, who then sort of gathers up the party members who've been strewn to all the corners of the world by their own adventures. And in the original version, there was a pretty interesting system where in chapters 1 through 4, you controlled everyone manually. In chapter 5, for some reason, the other party members beside the hero were AI controlled. And you could give them an idea of what you wanted to do with commands, like you could tell them show no mercy or focus on healing. But they weren't very smart. In particular, the guy with the silly hat, Kiro, there's multiple silly hats. The green hat in the back, he knows an instant death spell, originally called Defeat, and later translated as Thwack. He likes to try to use it on bosses who are immune to instant death spells, repeatedly, while everyone else is dying. I would say, while DQ3 is the most popular game in Japan, the actual characters of DQ4, because DQ3's party was pretty much had very little personality, since they're character generated, they're completely customizable. DQ4's characters are some of the favorites of the series. You might notice I look a little bit like one of the characters on the slide. I'm cosplaying as the Sarabna Elena. And Torneko, the really big guy with the striped shirt thing, he has his own series of Mystery Dungeon spin-off games,
which is interesting because he's the merchant class. He doesn't, he sells things. Like his chapter is you just getting money and you have to hire bodyguards to fight for you because you're not very good at it. So, okay, yeah, so moving on. So this is kind of interesting. The next game in the series is Dragon Quest V. This was released on the Super Famicom in Japan in 1992. Sadly, after Dragon Quest IV, we did not get another Dragon Quest game until 1999 with Dragon Quest Monsters on the Game Boy Color. There was a long period where we did not get any Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior, or anything. There was a number of reasons for that. Enix of America was having troubles at the time, and also there was some issues with like it would not be possible for some Super Nintendo cards to hold as much text as some of these games had. So, yeah. But anyway, Dragon Quest V, we did not get an official English version of this game until the DS remake back in 2006, 2007, mid-2000s. So, if you're going to be playing that game, you're probably playing it on that or the mobile port. But what's the game about? So the game follows the story of the hero, who's the guy in purple there, from his birth and childhood through marriage and fatherhood, basically. So one of the big things about it, which, you know, as given the subtitle, you can marry one of two, or well, three in the DS remake, potential wives at a critical story point partway through the game. And who here played Mother 3? A couple people? Okay, if you like Mother 3, you'll like Dragon Quest V. I'll just put it that way. It's hard to talk about this one because this Dragon Quest game, oddly for the series, is much more story and character based as opposed to other ones. Dragon Quest games, not that they're light on plot because they're an RPG, but they're not like a Final Fantasy game where the plot is linear and told, like there's a lot of overarching threads. There's weaker overarching threads, and Dragon Quest generally likes to focus on smaller vignettes overall, but this Dragon Quest V is kind of a departure from that norm. An interesting thing about this game, though, is that this is the first game with monster taming, where monsters can join your party and act as party members with you. So you can recruit a slime, you can recruit a large number of monsters in the game. And while this did not, this predated Pokemon, which is the premier monster training game, by about 4 years, but it did not, there's kind of a misconception where Dragon Quest invented this. This isn't true because some Shin Megami Tensei games did appear before Dragon Quest V, but it certainly was very influential on that genre. So yeah, this is a personal favorite of mine. I love Dragon Quest V. So anyway, let's move on to Dragon Quest VI.
So the other Dragon Quest game on the Super Famicom, which we did not get for the same reasons Ted mentioned, was Dragon Quest VI. And this game has a more sort of traditional narrative and structure. The hero and his party must explore two linked worlds to discover more about their identities and save both worlds. So what's really unique about this game is that there's two worlds to explore, and events in one world are linked to events in the other. So sometimes you need to go to a location that no longer exists in one world, so you have to go to the other world to access that location. It really expands upon the sort of job system that was introduced in 3. So in 3, you just said, there's literally a bar that you go to and you say, I want a martial artist, and there you go, there's your martial artist, fresh off the factory line, with no real distinguishing features. In 6, you have a set cast of characters, similar to 4, where each character has sort of their own personality, their own stat distribution, but you also have access to a job system. So you can make your hero, the guy with the blue hair, I want him to be a stronger warrior and make him a warrior class. Or you could say, I want him to learn healing magic and make him a priest. So this allows you to learn new spells and abilities, and this is something that has come back in later games.
And another thing just to mention real quick is that spells, abilities you learn in one class can carry over to the other one. So you can have, if you're a mage and then you turn into a warrior, you can use your magic and like shoot fireballs and also hit things. So that's really cool.
In the Super Famicom version, there was monster recruitment similar to Dragon Quest V, but this was dropped in the DS remake, which is the version that's generally easily available in the US. And compared to Dragon Quest V, the graphics, like the sprite work and the instrumentation, were pretty well improved because it's a late Super Famicom game.
So anyway, moving on, this is Dragon Quest VII. Somebody likes Dragon Quest VII, yay. So anyway, this was the first Dragon Quest game we got back since Dragon Quest IV way back on the NES when this came out on PS1 in 2000. So anyway, this is an interesting game. It follows the story of a hero and his friends, and they originally are on an island which is believed to be the only island in the entire world. But eventually, they discover the shrine, which takes them back into the past. They solve problems, and that brings the islands that had a problem in the past back into the present, and you are on a journey to literally rebuild the world piece by piece. A big thing about this game is the job system from 6 returns with some minor modifications. Another cool thing about this game is that it introduced party chat, where basically, one thing about Dragon Quest was is that once you joined a character, once a character joined your party, I should say, they very rarely spoke again, which meant that a lot of characters started to lose their personality as the game went on. In this case, with the party chat, what happens is you press a button after major events, when you enter a new town, and in later games, there are responses for each party member after nearly every line of NPC text. So it adds like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lines of dialogue, which is actually part of the reason why certain games took a long time to get translated, is because it's like thousands of lines of party chat would need to be translated as well.
There's a wonderful picture that I think it was an exhibit in the Dragon Quest pop-up museum in Japan of the script of Dragon Quest VII. It takes up a bookcase that's about yay tall.
And I think it would go like this entire wall too. It is huge. And another fun fact, this game is the highest selling PS1 game of all time in Japan. Like, no joke, it's the best, if you're in Japan, the most common Dragon Quest game, actually probably the most common Dragon Quest game, but
it's still, Street's still the highest selling when you combine the versions, but as far as just numbers on the original release, 7's king.
Yeah.
Which I think speaks more to the prevalence of the success of the PlayStation 1 than it necessarily does to Dragon Quest VII.
Yeah, and interestingly, for a PS1 game, which is known for like big FMVs and fancy graphics, this is actually, it's a 2D sprites on an overworld, and it still has beautiful sprite animation for the monsters, but still sprites. So a lot of people criticize the graphics at the time. And the other big thing about Dragon Quest VII is its length. Who here has beaten it all the way? Oh, cool, we got.
Whoa.
Yeah, it is
120 hours.
120 hours.
That sounds about
right.
Yeah,
it's easily the longest game in the series by far. You are going to be here for a long time if you play Dragon Quest VII.
And that's like that's not even. It's not even like if you're a completionist, it'll take you a long time. Like, no, it is even if you rush through the game, it would probably still be 70 or 80 hours.
Speed runs, I think, are like 15. I think. So yeah, so you're in for the long haul. But anyway, who here's played this one?
Who's heard of this?
Okay.
All right.
This is the Final Fantasy VII.
You'll notice that this is the first game that was released in Europe. We actually have a PAL release date. So this was the first, which is kind of amazing to me. So as a lot of you know, the basic story is that a castle guard, the hero, accompanies King Trode on a journey to lift a curse afflicting him and his daughter Medea. And along the way, he picks up some interesting companions. This game introduced the skill point system, which is in which characters earn skill points after each level up, and they can be used to customize character skills. So you can decide what you want your character to specialize in. If you want, for example, Angelo, the man in the red, if you want him to be a bow wielder or use rapiers, or improve his charisma, which is still never enough to get Jessica.
You can make Jessica improve her sex appeal too.
Jessica can realize how sexy she can be. This is the first fully 3D game in the series, and on the PS2, I've only played the 3DS remake. I've seen screenshots from the PS2 though, and the real like openness of the overworld. And the graphics for the time, well, it certainly has a more cel-shaded look than something like Final Fantasy X. They're pretty stunning. And the Western release, actually, they really wanted this game to do well in the West. In addition to the Final Fantasy XII demo, that I think was a lot of the reason people got the game in the West, they added voice acting and orchestral music.
Yeah, so anyway, it was a couple of years later when we got Dragon Quest IX, Sentinels of the Starry Skies. This is another popular one. Who's played 9?
My first one.
Oh, cool. Awesome. So this is, the story of this one is the angelic Celestrian, I can never pronounce this, falls from their home and they must journey through the human world to find their way back. This game brings back the job system in a huge way. It's trying to be sort of a successor to 9 in that sense, where 3, oh, sorry. 9 is a successor to itself. No, it's trying to be a successor to 3 in that way, where there aren't really any characters with distinguished personalities. You're recruiting characters from the bar again, but the customization has been updated since 3, and you can do a lot of stuff from 7 and 6, where you mix and match classes, you learn different abilities, all sorts of stuff. It also introduces a lot of optional quests. You can play with your friends. This is the first game in the series to have non-random battles as well, which is a big thing. Yeah, it was designed to be played with each other. It's also another very long game. If you're trying to 100% it can take a long time. And unfortunately now, a lot of the content is lost because there was the Wi-Fi connection content where like every week they would release a new dungeon, and you could go through and get all sorts of really cool stuff and fight old Dragon Quest bosses and things like that. But unfortunately, I believe you can still do some of it with an action replay, but I will be taking questions at the end.
Just commenting on that. If you multiplay with someone, you unlock all the quests because they're all just locked on cartridge.
Oh, okay.
So as soon as you connect to someone else who has it unlocked, it re-unlocks all the quests.
Oh, okay.
But someone has to already have it unlocked?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, yeah, a lot of that stuff is very difficult to get access to now. And also, this is designed to be a much more difficult entry in the series because they said everybody was going to look up strategies for it anyway. So, yeah. Anyway, so we got Dragon Quest games for actually a pretty long time. We got remakes of everything, but unfortunately, we're still waiting for this one.
Yeah, so Dragon Quest X, similar to how Square decided to handle their online MMORPG for Final Fantasy, they decided that the MMORPG for Dragon Quest should also be a numbered entry in the series. Because everyone loved that when Final Fantasy did it.
14's still good.
Yeah.
Not that the game is bad, it's just that why not call it Dragon Quest Online?
Yeah, so the disclaimer, have not played this game, know very little about it because it is Japan exclusive at the moment and I don't think we're getting it. So the basic plot that I gleaned is that you are human and then your soul is forced into a body of another race and you have to fight to deal with this Lord of Hell guy. So there's 5 playable, originally there were 5 playable races, a couple more were added in later expansions, and a job system, as you would expect for an MMORPG. There's a subscription fee, as you would expect, but there's also actually a free play time. I think they call it like kids time or something, because Dragon Quest has always appealed pretty well to kids in Japan, so they wanted to let kids be able to play without having disposable income. Again, they needed to change the game. They needed to really change the formula for Dragon Quest to make it fit an MMO because you're not really be able to do a turn-based system for an MMO. So there's an active time battle system. And officially, it has not been released outside of Japan due to operational difficulties. I think it's a combination of the cost of servers that it would entail, as well as the difficulties in translation. And I don't think it would do well outside of Japan, frankly.
I mean, there's still some slight hope because there's the PS4 and Switch all-in-one packages coming out soon, but I feel like getting this is very slim, unfortunately. What we have a little bit more hope for is this game, Dragon Quest XI, which comes out in Japan next month. It is coming very, very soon. It's officially slated for PS4 and 3DS. There have been rumblings about a Switch version. We don't really know anything about it yet. So anyway, has anybody in here watched that trailer? Because it is awesome.
It looks so good.
So anyway, there's actually a lot of callbacks to the original trilogy, and it's implied that you are a reincarnation of the ancient hero Erdrick, and you must do something. We don't know.
We have no idea.
We don't know yet. So it's actually, the battle system for this game actually looks very interesting in that you can move around, but like in Dragon Quest X, but it's still turn-based. They're bringing back skill points from 8, but with a twist where it's kind of like the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X, and a lot of, but it looks better than that, so, you know, that's good.
It's a lot less linear than the sphere grid in Final Fantasy X. It's actually non-linear. Like, it's not just you can go up here and get some strength points.
Yeah, so it looks really cool. The game also is drawing a lot of influences from the original Erdrick trilogy, but an interesting thing about it is that it also has a fully fledged cast of characters like 4, 6, and 8. where each character is designed to do specific things. So it doesn't seem like there's going to be a job system in this game anymore. So if you're a fan of the more like your character does this, and the customization isn't about like making them a mage or making them a warrior, then you might like this one a little bit more too. And there's actually some interesting things about the different versions. The PS4 version has beautiful HD graphics, the game looks phenomenal. While the 3DS version has an interesting thing where you can either play it in 3D, where the game will look very similar to the 3DS remake of Dragon Quest VII, but there's also a mode where you can play in 2D 16-bit styled sprites, which also looks really cool. So there's effectively 3 ways to play the game. Which is also awesome. So,
okay, so I know all of you are saying like, "Well, I'm sold. This sounds awesome." Where are good places to start? So, in our opinions, good games for starting places are Dragon Quest III, specifically either the Game Boy Color version or the mobile phone version is actually very good. It's based on the SNES Japan-only version. Dragon Quest IV, the DS port, or the mobile version. The mobile version has party chat, which the DS version did not include in the English release. And Dragon Quest V, again, the DS or mobile.
I should specify that if you want a game that's more story-based, if you want a more involved connection with the characters, I would stress 5. If you're like an old school RPG fan, then you really should play 3. I usually like to say 4 is the best place to start. That's where I started personally.
4 is kind of in between. I think it has some really strong story elements, but I don't think it's quite as emotionally powerful as 5 is. But 4 does have the odd structure with the chapters. So I would say games that I would suggest not to have be your first Dragon Quest are the original, just because it's pretty
old.
bare.
It's pretty much the first console RPG.
And it's not bad, but it's just you might get turned off by the series if you're like, this is it.
Yeah.
This game is hard. This game is not your friend.
It's just considered one of the hardest RPGs of all time, up there with stuff like Shin Megami Tensei. So it is brutal. You will die a lot.
Dragon Quest VII, it's not that it's a bad game. It's a fine game. It's very, very long. I know plenty of people who started it and got burned out. Didn't see where the plot was going. So I would say, you might like it. I know plenty of people who love Dragon Quest VII, but I wouldn't suggest starting there.
Yeah, that's a Dragon Quest fan's Dragon Quest game, essentially. So anyway, that's pretty much it for our panel itself. But we do have about 15 minutes left. So we have some trivia for you guys. And if you manage to win the trivia, we have some cool Dragon Quest Perlers. I made them myself, guys. So anyway, our first question.
So how we're going to do this is raise your hand. We will point and call to the person whose hand we see first. You cannot win more than one. We will have easier questions at first. So if you think you know your stuff, wait till the end.
Yeah, and please don't shout things out because that's not cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, question number 1. How many slimes must come together to form King Slime? I saw DC. How many?
100?
No.
No.
All the way in the back. All the way in the back.
Oh, 5.
5? Nope.
Green hat.
Link. Yes.
Link.
4.
4?
No.
No. Okay.
Believe it's 9.
No.
No. Green shirt's been pretty quick on the draw.
10?
10?
No.
Nope.
Guys, learn to count.
White hat? I'm sorry.
Sylvian. 15.
15? No.
No.
Okay.
Blue shirt.
Somebody said 10. Next, Caro.
8.
8.
Yes.
Yes. You win the slime.
Win the slime curler.
That was meant to be. Oh wait.
Yes.
Okay. Here you go.
You get a slime.
Okay.
That's from 7, right?
That's from 8.
That's from 8. The King Slime first appeared in Dragon Quest IV. So anyway, this is another easy one. The winner gets this red slime.
Name a monster that disguises itself as a treasure chest. I think I saw in the orange shirt.
Mimic.
Yeah.
This is Nanobox-chan, Mimic-kun, and Pandora's Box Sama.
They originated in Dragon Quest III, and
This was a
they
bad
can
idea.
wreck your stuff.
Fun fact, there is a spell in Dragon Quest specifically designed to detect these bad guys. Okay, so this next one, they're gonna get harder, guys, these for sure. But this one is for our bubble slime, right here. Okay, Genghis in Dragon Quest VIII.
I think I saw your hand first.
Governor.
Yes.
Good job.
Love you, Angus. All right. The next question. What is the first monster
Wait,
that...
hold on. For the hero, oh wait, no, wait. Actually, this is for.
I don't remember what we were doing.
This is for the Dragon Lord. The Dragon Lord.
All right. What is the first monster that the DQ5 protagonist befriends? I think I saw someone in the back first. You with the red shirt in the middle. Yes.
Oh, Saber.
Yeah. What kind of monster is it?
Something kind of cat. I forget.
He got his name.
Yep.
So yeah, you win the Dragon Lord, good sir.
Come up, sir. Get the Dragon Lord.
All right. So this next question is for Princess Laura or Gwaylin if you're an NES kid. Okay. So. All right. So anyway, next question. Of the two Mahabala sisters, Maya and Mina, which one is older?
I think I saw you in the gray shirt
I'm
first.
just gonna, I think Mina, right? No.
No. Oh, how do we do this?
Oh wait, hold on. I've got to back up. Can you name which one is which?
Yeah, I got this.
All right, you.
Okay, Maya is the one who's not all that close, and Mina is the one with the clothes.
Good job.
That's correct. Yes. Maya is 3 years older than Mina. We did not think that through.
Okay, so this next one is going to be for the hero of the original Dragon Quest. So anyway, there was one class added to the remakes of Dragon Quest III on Super Famicom. What class was that?
DC, I saw DC stand.
Yeah.
Beastmaster?
No, sorry. You, good sir.
Martial artist?
Martial artist? No, sorry.
Defender was. Defender's been trying.
Defender.
Jester?
No, just
that's the original.
Okay, so a little hint, all of the class, this is the Famicom artwork right on the screen, so anything you see there is not in the remakes, so yeah. Okay.
Black shirt. I can't. Nintendo shirt. Yes. Yes.
Thief, good job. Congratulations.
Nice.
Okay, so these next two questions are considered our hardest questions, and so you have to have a lot of
You
experience
have
with
to
Dragon.
have a lot of EXP.
So for this one, you are going to be winning the metal slime. The metal slime.
If it doesn't run away.
If it doesn't run away. 3 boss monsters guard the way to the final boss Hargon in Dragon Quest II. Can you name all 3 of them?
The unholy trinity.
I beat it, I just can't remember the name.
Wait a minute. They were.
Beat it like 19.
I'm gonna just throw it out there. You really can't guess these guys. We have a couple of backup questions if nobody has this one. So.
Think you got it?
You think you have them?
Give it a try.
Eeny, meeny, mo.
No.
No.
I was thinking of something else. That would be cool.
All right. Here's a hint. Has anyone played Dragon Quest Heroes?
Yes. There's an extra mission with these
You
characters in
fight
them.
all 3 of them in Dragon Quest Heroes, and one of them has a special mission. Jack.
Oh, is it Atlas, Zuzu, and Zarlox?
Yes! You got them! Come on, everybody. Yeah, so Atlas is the guy with the club.
Pazuzu is the mean-looking monkey, and Belial is the guy with the pitchfork. They're all awful.
And Belia, the yellow one, he's also known as
called
Zarlox. Okay, so anyway, this is our last question. In Dragon Quest
In Dragon Quest 7, there is one island that if you screw up real hard in the present, what is it called? We will accept either name. It was renamed in the remake. Yes.
New Zealand?
No.
Close, but no. You, sir.
I was just saying, I guess Detroit.
No.
Can we give that guy something anyway?
Anybody?
Screw it, I ain't played the game that much, but I'll try.
What's up?
Sure.
Emmerdale? I don't know.
Emmerdale? No, you can.
No, Emmerdale's okay.
Yeah.
Why didn't it blow up?
You beat the boss. That's why it didn't blow up.
No, I didn't. I stopped.
Well, then it did blow up. You monster. Okay, so if nobody's got this one, we have a
Oh,
backup.
Okay, Shadow, calm down.
I
Never.
don't remember the name of the town. I don't think it was Greenville. I know it's the one that Wiggler saves you in, but I cannot remember its name.
Oh, okay.
That's so close.
That's so close. Do we give it to him?
I don't remember. I think we used up all our backups, so I don't think.
Yeah,
we
okay.
did it. All right.
Yeah, so
The name of the town, yeah, because you basically got the name of the town is not again in the read. Get
and
it?
you're saved by Wiggles. Wiggles!
Yeah, or Chibi in the.
Chibi. Okay, so you were close enough, good sir. So
Yeah.
you win the medal babble.
Close enough.
Yeah, so come up here and welcome to the stage. So anyway, we have about
We have like
5 minutes.
for Dragon Quest in A.
Dragon Q&A. So
Q&A.
again, we'll have raised hands. If you've got any
Yeah.
questions, please try to keep it to the Dragon Quest in general. Spin-offs are good too, but yeah, just try to keep it to Dragon Quest.
No
and-
overt spoilers.
Sure, so
I saw your hand first.
His or
In front.
Oh, me? Okay. So I know that 4 through 10, technically 11 as well, had subtitles. But when did 2 and 3 get like
mobile versions.
versions? Oh.
In the Japanese, they always had a subtitle, but the titles we listed were from the mobile remakes.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
What you have?
What's your guys' favorite character in all the Dragon Quest games?
Ooh.
I love Elena because she's just so like, especially in her incarnation in Dragon Quest Heroes, just gave her like the exact character that I thought she would have. I would say my other favorites. I wish I could like Angelo more than and I have a soft spot for Terry. He's the world's greatest swordsman pal.
For me, I have a huge fondness for the entire Dragon Quest IV cast, particularly the two sisters, Maya and Mina. Not like that. When it comes to the other games, though, the 3 wives from Dragon Quest V, particularly Deborah, who is best waifu, I love all of those guys too. They're fantastic. Nora, what's up?
You've talked a lot about the games mechanically, obviously, since you're trying to avoid spoilers. What do you think is the best game from a narrative standpoint?
5.
Five has the sort of strongest overall narrative. I would say 8 has some story issues.
We don't like the pacing specifically.
Yeah, I don't like the pacing. I don't like the way something very important became irrelevant for 60 to 70% of the game. I would say 6 has a very strong narrative. I mean, I'm a big fan of 6, but I think 6 has a very strong narrative. 4's narrative is limited by the fact that it's an NES game, but it's still very coherent.
And the stories themselves, basically the games like to have vignettes, basically, where there's small stories, like every town has its own story, basically. So it's not like the games are like completely like just text-based and like have no story whatsoever. It's just that the overarching plot is usually not the main focus for about a good 2/3 of the game, I should say.
First of all, it's exciting to see so many people. Dragon Quest was my first RPG when I was a kid.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I'm probably one of the older people in the room. But there's a couple others I saw. So I'm just excited to see, and your passion obviously is rearing off of you guys. It's awesome. I think it's the best RPG series of all time.
It's one of my favorites, yes.
Just seeing you two, you look relatively young, at least from my viewpoint. What got you into the series? Because to me, like, I talk to the younger. I'm a teacher. I talk to younger kids. Play Dragon Quest, and they're like, what? They're used to all these shooters online. Dragon Quest is such an old school grindy RPG series. What got you into it?
It's actually interesting because I'm a big RPG fan right now, but I actually.
What was your first one?
My first game ever was Pokemon.
Your first Dragon
My first Dragon Quest was 4. It's interesting. Like the only RPGs I played all the way through high school were Pokemon and Paper Mario, and then I discovered Final Fantasy 4 on the Wii Virtual Console, and I was like, "Whoa, this is cool! I'm gonna try other series." And one that when I was looking up Let's Plays, one that I saw just in the corner of my eye was Dragon Warrior and Dragon Quest, and I watched a few, and it was just like, whoa, this is really cool. So I just ordered 4 on Amazon on a whim, and it just ended up being one of my like top 10 favorite games of all time now.
Have you beaten them all?
I've beaten 4, 5, 6, 3. I died to the Dragon Lord in 1. 7, 8. 9's the next game I need to play. So yeah, I've beaten almost all of the games. I have not played 2 yet. I'll get to that. So. I'll get to that.
I only got into the series like a little over a year ago. It was something that I'd had on my radar for quite some time, but didn't really know much about it. Didn't know where to start. And Ted here suggested start with 4. You know, gave me advice when I was confused about things. Which these games are well designed. You're not confused that often. And I just when I played 4, it felt like the RPG I had always wanted, but like when Final Fantasy didn't quite do it for me in certain ways. So it just kind of filled that niche that I didn't even know I wanted.
Cool.
Glasses with the blue shirt.
Yeah. So I relatively recently got into the series. I was first introduced to it off of a spin-off.
Oh, what one?
I don't know the name because because it's been like so long since I played the spin-off.
Okay.
But it was like you play as the slime or whatever.
Oh, Rocket Slime! Oh, Rocket Slime, yeah.
Yeah, that was the one. And pretty recently, I think it was maybe a month or 2 ago, I got into Dragon Quest IV.
Oh,
Great
yeah.
game.
But is there any games from here that you would recommend me to play?
A lot of people really like 8. For us, we're a little bit less. Okay, we have a YouTube channel which we were going to plug at the end, but we did discussions.
We talked about 8 for like 7 hours.
Because it's a great game, but a lot of people love 8. A lot of people think 8 is the best game. We do not necessarily agree with that, but we definitely see why people think that. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So 8 is if you
friendly to people who are. You know, it's easier. I think because it's got like a storyline, voice acting.
Yeah. I think 8's easy to get into, and I think it's certainly like I really appreciate 8 for what it did as far as a more cinematic presentation. Like it's the first game with actual cutscenes where the camera moves around and it has framing shots, and it really tried to have a good narrative with things like theming and some character development, but. Yeah, I think it's just there's some specific narrative things where we felt like the game kind of dropped the ball. But I would say as far as the game goes, it's a solid game. It's definitely, it's not my favorite, but it's certainly not a bad game to play or a bad place to start if you want to get into a game that's a more modern RPG. Just keep in mind that it's not necessarily, you're not. 8's the only game like it right now.
Yeah, in terms of length, it's also pretty comparable to other PS2 RPGs of the time. So like, it's the DS and NES, the DS remakes of the Zenithia trilogy is what's called 4, 5, and 6. You can beat most of those in under 40 hours. So a lot of the earlier Dragon Quest games are very, very short. Dragon Quest 7 is very, 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 very long. 8 is about a 60 to 70 hour game if you're not trying to go for everything. I would say that's about fair. Yeah. So depending on how long you like your RPGs as well, because that's kind of the thing for me. Once an RPG passes like 50 hours, I tend to get worn out a little bit. So that's part of the reason one of the reasons I kind of struggled with 8 a little bit, especially towards the end. But it's definitely not a bad place to start. That's why we kind of put it we didn't leave it on the.
Put it in the neutral camp.
Yeah, because in our opinion, we didn't start with it. I guess is also the thing too. So, we don't have our first Dragon Quest attachment to it as well. So yes.
Yes.
I do got a question though. Though you guys probably already said it, but was there a Dragon Quest game being made for the 3DS, or is it out currently?
Okay, it comes out. Okay, so
there were 2 remakes made for the 3DS. So there was a Dragon Quest 7 remake for the 3DS, and that was like a really big. Like it was basically they made the great. They made a new engine. Like it's all in 3D. It's there's no voice acting or anything, but it's a really good remake, and it's really, I would say the best way to play Dragon Quest 7. It was completely retranslated, like all those books, they retranslated them.
They also did a couple of things to trim the fat as well, make it a little bit easier if you're missing a few key items. The beginning, the people complained about the beginning of Dragon Quest 7 because you could easily go 2 to 3 hours before you fight your first fight with these little guys right here.
Okay.
They trimmed the fat on that, so it only takes like an hour and a half now. So,
So would you guys kind of recommend that to be kind of like the first one? If
we would not.
I still would not.
Yeah.
When I say
That'd be
that
nasty.
DQ7 took me like over 90 hours, that was still the 3DS version. And
it's still
DQ8
very, very long.
DQ8 got a 3DS remake, which added some content, but it kind of looks worse because you took a PS2 game and you squished it onto a 3DS.
There is also the Dragon Quest Monsters series. Monsters Joker 3 is on the DS. That's 3DS, I should say.
But that's currently Japan.
And in Japan, they also remade the first 2 Dragon Quest Monsters games for 3DS, but we also do not have those either. So.
And then Dragon Quest 11 is getting released in Japan, but we have no news on English localization.
And one more thing.
Sorry.
You guys.
Sure.
In the back, you've been trying.
Favorite enemy?
Favorite enemy? Ooh. Oh, there's a lot.
Metal King Slime.
Metal.
Love Mumbo Jumbo. Yeah, Mumbo Jumbo.
I would say I have such a soft spot for the imps. They're the ones that like their tongues are sticking out and they're holding little pitchforks and they're super silly because you run into them early game and they try to cast like end game spells like kaboom, but then it's like, but it didn't have enough MP. And a lot of the times in Dragon Quest 8 when they do that, they're like, and they just fall over. That's okay.
Yeah. Oh god, there's so many. I love all the different slimes, obviously. If I had to pick one other, oh god, it's so hard. All of them. Akira Toriyama, I always has thought his best work has always been with monsters. I always thought like the part of why I like original Dragon Ball more than Z is that you see like his dinosaurs and the unique kinds of enemies and all sorts of stuff. I love how he draws creatures more than how he draws people, actually. So
you also like golems a lot.
Oh, Golem. Golem is probably my favorite enemy just because it's the design is really striking to me. It's kind of hard to put a word to it, but I love the golems as well. So it is.
I feel like
it's 5. We are past 5.
Are we getting kicked out, sir? Okay. Cool.
We've still got 5 minutes.
Okay, great.
Oh, cool. So 5
All right.
minutes.
Any more questions? I saw your hand first. Marvel Comics.
Oh, thanks. So you mentioned how the series are not taking off here in the West as much as say Final Fantasy, even maybe Persona lately. But why do you believe is the main reason for that not becoming as popular as Japan?
I think it's a few reasons. I think part of the problem is that the series was handled by Enix for a long time. Because the games have been made by a variety of different studios, but before 8, the localization and release was handled by Enix, and Enix did not have a big presence in the U.S. Like, we're done.
Yeah, some of the panelists are outside.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah,
All right. So what we'll do,
there's a lot of
well,
reasons.
what we'll do is we'll go out.
Thank you for coming, everybody.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. We will meet.